Oh man, my apologies. We had a runner. No, dog escaped. We're good now. Let's refresh, reset. So, anyways, I traveled to Tulsa this weekend. My capacity there was as a photojournalist. I was looking to capture the images of the evening, primarily everything that happened outside. I broadcasted live a couple of times to let you guys see the actual scene. Prior to leaving for Tulsa that morning, it was kind of a I won't say it was a last minute thing. I had it on the calendar, but I just wasn't 100% sure I was going to go. But in accepting this role as a photojournalist, I said, you know what? Let me head up there, get on the road, and I'm seeing these images showing all of these people outside of the BOK Center, and it had me concerned that I wasn't going to be able to get in. Now, immediately upon reaching Tulsa, I noticed traffic was relatively slow. Um, it was a Saturday. It was a Saturday afternoon. I think it was like 1, 2 o'clock when I arrived. It didn't seem like it was. It didn't seem like the president was in town. It didn't seem like there was a big major event going on, and it didn't seem to reflect the thousands of people that I believed who were going to be outside of the arena, uh, blocking off all streets. So it took me a minute to find parking. I did fairly fine. I found a spot, started walking over to the arena area, and as I made my way to the area outside where many of the people were just kind of hanging out until they could be let inside the gate, because there was several gated off areas before you could actually reach the BOK Center. It was relatively calm. Again, I went live. I broadcasted that. I showed you there were Black Lives Matter protesters out there, kind of marching in we'll say a 8 block radius around, or I guess the surrounding 8 blocks around the actual area where the event was. But many people were, or I guess it was reported, or at least President Trump was saying that protesters were blocking the entrance, and that is 100% unequivocally not true. Protesters were not blocking the entrance in any way whatsoever. There was nothing to block. In fact, I actually have photos that I want to show you guys. Specifically, hold on, let me find. Wait a minute. So this is where the line is supposedly supposed to start. You guys can see that photo, right? This is where the line starts. As you can see, there is plenty of way for you to walk. Actually, at where it says this line here, just to the left of this area, there are actually state troopers or National Guards troops standing right there, just to the left of that. They have barricades, and there is probably, I don't know, half of a city block between there and the actual gate to the BOK Center. And as you can see, people are freely able to walk from there back up to the gate. No one is obstructing anything, and it wasn't that type of environment. Again, I was broadcasting from there, so if you saw my live stream, you could see that there was no one blocking anything. As you can see here, there's a billion troops all over this place. This is just a small area outside of this little, maybe a block and a half over. Heavy artillery people out there, obviously showing just a show of force with the National Guard. But for the most part, they didn't have to be utilized. And then here you have this gentleman with the with the Trump rally sign, letting people know exactly where to go. So he's clearly not obstructing anyone's view. He's just letting you know where the rally is. So there is no reason to believe that these people prevented anything from actually occurring, other than people going to attend the rally. With that said, again, as far as what I saw regarding the masks, I would say 50-50-ish on the masks. I didn't see a lot of the. I arrived in the area about 2 o'clock. So from about 2 until 7, the gate was not open. I didn't see a ton of people really wearing masks in the area, except for the protesters, actually, protesters and journalists. Then as we got closer, or I'm sorry, then after the event actually let out, I saw people walking out of the rally, and I did see, some people with masks on. And you saw the pictures, the images from the inside of the BOK Center. Some people did have masks on, but it was definitely that show of defiance regarding, what Trump was expecting. He talked about his how he was addressing the virus in his speech. There was that moment where people were saying that he said to slow down the testing. I interpreted it as a joke. The crowd seemed to laugh, but the questions are, well, was he truly telling people to, or was he truly asking his staff to slow down testing? Well, obviously, we'll never know. That information will never come out. But leading up to the rally, we had 14 states reporting increased cases from the week prior. So I think that probably had a lot to do with people not showing up. I know there were a bunch of teenagers saying that, or I guess there's a TikTok movement or whatever to request a bunch of tickets to make people think that over a million people were going to show up to this rally. If it was a football game, and again, we don't really have much to compare it to as to what to expect coming out of a pandemic, but if it were a sporting event, I imagine it would have been closer to a capacity crowd, especially with a million requests. People typically for something big like this would come from all over. That's not going to just be the local area. But considering this is Tulsa, a deep red state where I imagine 65 to 70%, we'll say 60 to 65% of the population will still vote for Donald Trump. It was surprising that he was not at least able to fill the venue. Surrounding states, you got, Texas, what's above us? Missouri. No, that's not above us. But, surrounding states, I feel like he should have been able to. I mean, this is a 19,000. I said 22,000 in my live stream. This is a 19,000 capacity arena. He should have been able to fill that relatively easy. I can't attribute that to TikTok. I also don't think that the media played that much of a role. I honestly do think that people genuinely had concerns for the crowd, the rising cases, and I do believe that people were actually concerned about protesters. I mean, we have had quite a bit of that, and with this being an act of defiance, considering it coming on the backs of Juneteenth, I do believe a lot of people were concerned that there might be something going on outside the arena. In fact, when I parked in the parking lot, the woman who took what I paid said that we're going to be out. You have to have your car out of here by 12. And I was like, "Are you going to be here till 12?" She's like, "Yeah, as long as everything stays copacetic. If there's any type of violence or any type of rioting breaks out, then she was going to be shutting down early." So there was that concern. Again, I showed you the photos, the show of force, but there was no real escalation outside of the arena. There was no real escalation after the event. He said himself, he wasn't kidding. Dude said he's really that. He is really that dumb. Yeah. Again, going in all of this, man, it's really unbelievable. Trump right now is trailing Joe Biden by 14 points in the polls. What I heard in that speech, he is just really showing that he is a divider. You know what I mean? This would have been a great opportunity for him to try to unify the country. He was threatening protesters, essentially saying that there should be more of a heavy hand to be applied to protesters. He called the people outside of the arena very bad people or something to that effect. Just always with the divisive language, and people I think are truly starting to get tired of it, and that's why I really want to do this presentation, because as we get throughout this, I'm going to show you the true images of the night, and it was actually pretty surprising. You know what I mean? The media is going to cover this thing one way, but what I saw that night was definitely different than what you may have expected. And I don't think I did see one of the photos show up on USA Today, but I don't know the story they ran that to accompany it. 62% of voters say Biden would do a better job of bringing the country together following the weeks of protests over the George Floyd death. While in police custody, 53% of voters say Biden would do a better job establishing law and order compared to 47% with Trump. The latest Harvard Caps Harris poll finds that 61% of voters say Biden would do a better job at solving issues of race policing compared to 39% who say Trump would. So these are alarming numbers for the incumbent president going into an election. But I say all of that but I want to throw this little piece of information here in case you guys missed this. Um, Fox News, which aired Trump's speech live, had the biggest Saturday night audience in the network's 24-year history. The Nielsen company said during Trump's address at 9 p.m. Fox had 8.9 people, 8.2 million people watching, which, again, as I said, people might not have attended the rally, but people, I do believe, are still intrigued by the message, and I can't imagine anyone other than someone who supports Donald Trump would be watching a Trump rally. But again, we don't have much going on. We don't have live sports. People are kind of wrapped up in what's going on, which is causing people to feel the need to actually take to the streets and be engaged where they previously would not be able to. But with people not having jobs, not having that much to do, hey, let me go out and stand with other Americans or counter protest. Pick your poison, Trump, but Biden is no better. Yeah, absolutely. So this is just a list of the 6 reasons that Trump gave for the low turnout. Lots watched on TV. We covered that. People watched online. He had a 2.5 million unique viewers on the live stream, which is just crazy. He blamed protesters. Again, I showed you their protesters were clearly not obstructing anything. In fact, this gentleman here is just letting you know right where to go. I will say this. This was actually pretty interesting. A lot of the Black Lives Matter protesters were white people. Okay, this was not just a bunch of black people out there agitating. It was a pretty even support. You know what I mean? I saw there were a couple of no hate in the 918 signs and things like that. A lot of white people, a lot of Latinos. This woman, I just show her because. I think there was a bit of agitation from the Black Lives Matter side. There was a bit of, fighting of the people on the streets, but it wasn't people were arguing, they were yelling, but there were no fists. There was no violence. There were a couple of heated moments. One moment later on in the night, there were some, I think they call them pepper balls were shot into the crowd. But at that particular moment, that was kind of where everything ended. The Black Lives Matter crowd retreated back to the Greenwood district, and that was it for the night. So this was a fairly smooth event. I know people would say, well, it was tense, and that's definitely a reason why people wouldn't have wanted to bring their children. But for the most part, considering the magnitude of the situation, I think this went rather well as far as protests and what was expected on that end. This was just a night where Trump didn't live up to expectation. He was one boasting and bragging about the watchers and the viewers and the people who were going to attend, and they just didn't show up. But again, when you have people watching online, it does kind of compensate for that. And I also, of course, believe that there are people who still support the president who aren't going to openly say so. He is a divisive figure. But I think that, right now, considering how he's addressed the pandemic and the way many Americans are starting to feel, I think he may truly start to be losing that support. And then when you consider that Joe Biden is able to, surpass him in polling, given his absence, I mean, he's really nowhere. Joe Biden is they've taken him out of the basement now. Now he's in front of some windows, but he's not hitting the trail. Obviously, he's not making any appearances. I see he had he's supposed to have a fundraiser with President Obama, went over a live stream, but there's not going to be much activity from him, and you don't expect him to throw a rally anytime soon. But who would attend? But I think we really are at the point where people are saying, you know what, I'm willing to just vote for Joe Biden because this guy's dangerous. And whatever black support that he may have thought he had, I think it's really hard for any black person in this country to support Donald Trump, regardless of whatever economic benefits you've received under him as president. When you consider how he handles matters of race, like he simply is absent. Like he barely mentions things like that. He has nothing to say. but he will gladly rush out there to condemn protesters. He'll gladly talk about his Italian brethren, and just he says certain things. You just like, you don't, if you don't think that Donald Trump is racist, like I hate to break it to you, but he really is. Like, there's no easier way to put it than that. Like, he just is. I'm confused. I thought Black Lives Matter was a group to help the black community. Their top agenda, main focus is the LGBT community. Well, yeah. Hey, you know who? It's all about who butters that bread, right? But a president is not a king, and the rules via his cabinet. Biden would have more competent people around him than Trump, absolutely. And you know, Trump, he just throws them out. he'll put you in his cabinet for a few weeks, and then you'll be out shortly thereafter. So, who Trump starts out with doesn't matter, because they probably won't stick around. I've never seen anything like that. Trump said, "Black guys counting my money. I hate it. The only kind of people I want counting my money are short guys that wear yarmulkes every day." Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Yeah, Trump, he can't pretend. Like, it's one thing to pretend to be blind to matters of race, but he will disregard matters of race when it isn't convenient, but then he will speak on them when he wants to make a point or when he wants to rally his base. He does that intentionally. In his speech the other night, he did it. Like, that's not something you do unless you're intentionally trying to avoid this one crowd and appease this other crowd. Like, he's doing that on purpose. That is somebody who's racist, okay? Biden creates the machine that creates Trump and is showing his age arguably more than Trump. Maybe, but most likely. I just hope if Biden wins, the target remains on the establishment back. If telling African Americans like Ilhan Omar go back to Africa isn't racist, Trump's talked and done a lot. The media just doesn't show it. I agree. I said that the other night. I 100% agree. Trump's idea of fake news is something that we will never that's never going to be out of our vernacular. We're always going to go back to fake news. The media is going to remain an untrusted part of our politics. But the reality is, his actions at this point are making it hard for people to support him. Let me show you guys this. What is this? Everybody is worried about the wrong thing. Y'all worried about Donald Trump. Y'all need to focus on who he's appointing these federal judges. Agreed. Yang Cuban might create that in 20. Who's the president in the Yang Cuban ticket? So this is actually my favorite moment of the night. Okay, I want to show you guys this. Yeah, we covered the polling. So that's just where we are. You know, Trump's a mess. It's up to him to try to fix this thing. But I wanted to show you guys this because this is the image that I don't think is going to be covered. This is the story that I don't think is going to come out of Tulsa from the other night. Now I know we're days past. It's time to cover Arizona. We're going to get on that. But the other night, this young man right here, was being interviewed by this TV news network, and the reporter was asking him, or he said something. I kind of walked in on the conversation, and the lady says, "Well, let me read you guys what I wrote, because I want to make sure I get it right." Drain swamp means appoint a bunch of judges who are loyal to Trump. Yeah. I don't want to get this wrong. I'm going to just tell you guys what I wrote. They said they don't want us to talk because we might agree. He said as this young man spoke to the reporter on the streets of Tulsa outside of the Trump rally last night. The reporter asked, "Who is they?" And the man replied, "The media." When asked if he had found common ground with any Trump supporters, the young man reached around and hugged another gentleman, a white gentleman. and yelled, "Please don't edit this out." He went live while being interviewed to ensure the truth of the interaction will be broadcast. Minutes later, he was leading the crowd of Black Lives Matter protesters back to Greenwood to defuse the escalating tensions with law enforcement, thanking protesters for their compliance. Uh, this is actually the series of events that happened. This guy, I don't know what his role is. I believe he is from Tulsa. He's a Black Lives Matter activist. But I actually witnessed him multiple times hugging Trump supporters, talking to these people, and there was quite a bit of dialogue on the streets of Tulsa. For the most part, Trump supporters were there to support Trump. They kind of stuck to themselves. It was that, you know what I mean? You're going to an event to support the guy. You don't really want to engage with the other side. And it was that. And I expected that. I didn't feel uncomfortable most of the time. I there was I hit a couple of corners and there was a couple of Confederate flags waving. There were a lot of guys on bikes. There wasn't a lot of people that looked like me. At that particular moment, I was slightly concerned. But for the most part, I was pretty comfortable around the big crowd. It was just when the crowd kind of thinned out. But and then there were the hardcore Trump supporters who are the hardcore Trump supporters and the hardcore Black Lives supporters who were willing to engage in like angry, visceral attacks against each other, and that happened. But as the night drew later, there started to be these moments like this, where this gentleman was speaking. He's one of the guys with the bullhorns on the Black Lives Matter side, and he's reaching out and he's talking to people. He's asking, "Why do you feel like that? Why do you disagree with that? Why do you say that?" If because there were the chants, people would say the Black Lives Matter, and then you would hear a Trump supporter across the way, one of those more fervent Trump supporters would say, "All lives matter," and then this guy or a guy like this would walk up to him and say, "Well, why do you feel like that? Why do you think that what I'm saying doesn't mean that I support what you're saying?" And as that happened, this was the scene. You know what I mean? Like I said, you'll see this guy is seen right here. You'll see him right in the middle of the screen. I'm sorry, you probably can't see my mouse, but he's right here in the middle of the screen. Actually, make my thing bigger. I'm sorry, I got you guys on these little tiny images. On the rebroadcast, I'll make this bigger. But you'll see, he's right there. This is him in the middle of the screen with the bullhorn, asking the Black Lives Matter protesters to retreat to Greenwood, saying, "Hey, listen, we don't want to escalate any tension. Let's go on back where we came from. It's all good. We're not trying to incite anything. We've done our purpose. Let's head back." He's that guy, and he's also the same guy who you see here hugging this guy who said, "I am a Trump supporter." And I didn't support Trump. And the reporter asked him, "Did you support Trump or why did you vote for Trump in 2016?" He said, "I didn't vote for Trump in 2016. I watched him. I wanted to see how he would behave in office, and now I'm supporting him." These guys are hugging here. They're willing to have conversation because as much as Trump likes to incite, he's going to appeal to certain people, and that's fine. You're always going to appeal to some people, and people are always going to not like you. But we're all just people. We all want the same things. We all have families. We all want to prosper. Like, we all have common goals, and there's not a reason that as long as what I'm trying to do isn't obstructing you from doing what you're trying to do, I think for the most part, most Americans are okay with that. And when he says that they don't want us to talk, this is the truth. The media is about this divide and conquer. These major multinational corporations are about divide and conquer. They don't want dialogue, because if we start dialoguing and we start finding common ground, we might start to change things in the system that people don't like. And this was a beautiful scene. I really wish this particular story got picked up. I was there to cover and provide images, but I don't think they ran with this because I didn't get to publish a particular story. But I really wanted you guys to see this was the scene, okay? Sorry, let me bring that down. So, what is this? The tribalism is not humanity first. Until there are reparations of some form, doesn't have to be straight cash, but potentially other community investments, will there There will not be the needed healing in this country. People are afraid of reparations, and that's you see, it's political suicide. You know what I mean? People are afraid of that idea because they feel like if something like that happens, then they're going to lose something, and that's how people are. Everyone is for everybody until they think they're going to lose something. Then they're like, whoa, whoa, wait a minute. I support you in doing your thing, unless it's going to affect me. That's where we are. I mean, I think that's just human nature, I guess. I don't know what to call it. I'm sure some people are better than others, and some people are more selfish than others. But I know, as a black man who was a member of the Yang Gang, there are definitely issues that affect my community that if I tried to talk to other members about the Yang Gang about, kind of fell on deaf ears quite a bit, and I just understood that, you know what I mean? And I think that you always just kind of have to pick your poison and kind of find your way and say, okay, well, this is these are the concessions that I'm willing to make. This is the trade-off I can do in order to get my agenda across. Because if you go too far, then you rub people the wrong way and they feel uncomfortable. It's our nature. Yeah, man, I don't blame people for that either. You know what I mean? I'm just all about trying to find a way where we can all accomplish our goals. And the Humanity First movement is that. Humanity First is humanity first. You know what I mean? It's very simple. But reparations are hard. Yeah, 100 years of change. Nobody buys that concern. Yeah, man. But again, I like to see that there were a lot of white allies out there, old, young. It wasn't just young people out there. It was a really cool thing to be a part of. It was really cool to be able to experience it. And now I can say I've attended my first Trump rally. And like I said, I don't feel like I felt uncomfortable. It didn't feel like a racist environment, even though obviously Trump kind of plays to that. It's just people who disagree. But as long as they're willing to talk, that's all we need. All we need is people who are willing to talk. I don't care. And even you don't even have to like me. You don't even have to like me. How about that? What can the YG do to listen more? Speak up, man. That's all. Just be a part, man. Like this whole sit back and act like, oh, because I'm not them, I can't do anything or I can't say anything is ridiculous. Because the people who have the power, tacit compliance is a thing. Silence is violence, or whatever. You know what I mean? If you know something wrong is happening, then something wrong is happening. You got to participate, and if you're not participating in change, then what are you contributing? You know what I mean? And it's easy to do that. It's easy to fall back in the shadows and say, you know what? Don't want to get involved. Most statue destroyers have been white, and I'm happy to see that. Yeah. And that's it. I want people to know that this is white people out here doing this stuff. Okay? It's white people out here doing that stuff. And that's cool, man. Like, it's cool to see people who are actually for something, and hopefully it's for the right reason. I did see, and I will say this, I was interviewing people, and there were a lot of people who they were cool showing me their signs and things like that, but then when I wanted to take a picture of them, or then when I wanted to get their names, they were like, can't do that. And that's a bit of a problem, but I'm not going to complain about progress. Like this guy showed me a sign, but then I told him I want to take a picture, and I asked him his name. He's like, yeah, okay. You almost, man. I can't go that far. What do I think about wearing the mask? I mean, I don't have an opinion. I mean, I have an yeah, let's wear the mask, whatever. Like, they're uncomfortable. I don't really like wearing a mask, but if cases are going up and my government has shown complete ineptitude regarding actually helping the middle class and helping everybody, then we got to do what we got to do. So I know that there's new science coming out. Some people are saying that masks aren't that great, but if the doctors in the hospitals wear masks, I'm going to go with what they're doing. You should be able to be yourself in the Yang Gang. If you can't, we should try to fix that. I mean, I agree, but I'm not gonna force the issue. You know what I mean? Like when I would criticize Andrew Yang on issues of race, um, I was not made to feel like those were popular opinions, and I get that, but that's because that's America. Like Yang is like, yo, I'm trying to win. I can't be saying divisive stuff, and it's like, okay, well, until people are willing to say divisive things, then we're going to stay where we are. So uh, it's just about reaching a point where people are willing to say, okay, fine, I'm willing to risk something as well, because most people are not. Most people are willing to hang in the back. You know what I mean? During slavery, you had people who actually like helped slaves escape, and then you had people who were just like, I'm not involved. I don't own any slaves, but I'm also not going to interfere. And that's most of the people. Most of the people are the ones who don't interfere. I'm worried about workers who are working 8 to 12 hours a day with the mask on. Yeah, man. Hey, listen, I was definitely concerned about being down there. There were a lot of people, but fortunately, it wasn't 100,000 people or a million or 100,000 people down in the streets. If that would had happened, yeah, it probably would have been this super spreader event. They say so. Until there's a vaccine, I'm in a mask and gloves. Can't afford to catch it or bring it to my family. Not a big deal. Yeah, there you go. I'm white, and our local YG group founder was a black entrepreneur who did think that there was some race in the campaign. There was some racism in the campaign. I don't like that you felt uncomfortable making certain points in the YG. I mean, it's not new to me. You know what I mean? So I'm not gonna trip. Like I'm a very rational person. Like I know that certain opinions will hinder professional advancement or you know what I mean? Like I understand the way the world works. That's just the way it is. And that like I don't love that. Um, but that's just reality, man. But progress is happening. You know what I mean? Like I said, even Trump is talking about signing some police reform. Now, how aggressive it'll be, we'll see. Um, but change is happening. Um, there are sicknesses you can get from prolonged mask use. Yeah, yeah, and of course the other thing with the mask use, I mean, probably the biggest issue I think is the fact that people don't have the supply to really wear masks and gloves the way they should. So people are reusing supplies, and it's obviously not as sanitary as it should be, or they don't have the proper supplies. So um, it ain't great, but it's still better than nothing. You know, so I'll definitely take that. But with all of that said, man, we're gonna move on, man. We're gonna move on. We're gonna start. I guess I'm gonna cover the Trump event in Arizona probably here tomorrow. We'll see how that went. But I really hope the activity picks up on regarding the campaign. Obviously, this all slowed things down, so that just kind of slowed down my production of videos. But I see that we're starting to mobilize once again here locally. There is an event in August that we're planning for, or not we're planning, but that I'll be taking part in to get back on my goal of like prison reform. So I'm going to continue those efforts. Things had slowed down quite a bit, but I'm definitely focused on enacting some major change right here in my hometown. Then there's still Hong Kong protests. Yeah, masks protect others from you. Yeah, there you go. Hong Kong, 98% of people who wear masks, and there are no new cases. I'm not going to argue with results, man. My comfort versus the public good. I'm gonna go with the public good. Um, so with that said, I'm gonna get out of here. I appreciate you guys for coming through today. Any issues that you guys want me to cover, talk about, any events you guys know that are occurring in Oklahoma, Texas, and the surrounding areas, I'm always willing to hit the road and do my part. Because I try to be more of an engaged person than just a commentator, just somebody who spouts an opinion online. There's work to be done in the streets. So, by the way, shout out to all of the new members of the Humanity First. I've seen quite a few, or the Humanity Forward. I've seen quite a few new members of the Humanity Forward movement who are, running for office, and there's just a lot of things going on. We're just limited as to how much we can actually do. Cover the DDP. Yeah. So appreciate you guys. Thanks for coming through. I will be back soon. I promise you. I'm still working. I hope you guys continue your efforts. Everyone, please stay safe. Wear your PPE if you can, and let's get back to normal quickly. Once I find my mouse. All right. Appreciate you guys.